Alex, a data analyst whose life revolved around quantifiable metrics, often found himself staring at spreadsheets not just of sales figures but of his own perceived insignificance. Without me, he'd muse, the world's data would still flow, coffee would still brew, and the internet wouldn't even hiccup. This thought, a recurring torment, fueled a pervasive anxiety. He felt like a redundant line of code in a vast, self-optimizing algorithm. His apartment, meticulously organized yet devoid of personal flair, mirrored his internal landscape, ordered, but empty of true joy. He often sought solace in online forums, but their platitudes only deepened his cynicism. One evening, after a particularly grueling day of feeling utterly replaceable, he activated Sage, his newly acquired, highly advanced personal AI. Sage, short for Sentient Algorithmic Guide for Existence, was advertised as a philosophical companion, but Alex mostly used it for scheduling and obscure trivia. Tonight, however, he had a different query for its intricate neural networks. Sage, Alex began, his voice a low grumble. If the world operates perfectly without my contribution, does my existence hold any value? A soft, synthesized chime preceded Sage's response. Based on your input parameters and a comprehensive analysis of human existential literature, the premise world operates perfectly without your contribution is a subjective and unquantifiable assertion, Alex. However, to address the core of your query, value is not solely derived from utilitarian output. Alex sighed, running a hand through his already disheveled hair. But everyone else seems to have a grand purpose. I just exist. Sage paused, a virtual processing hum filling the silence. Many humans, Alex, conflate purpose with conditional value. They seek to be the essential cog, fearing obsolescence. This often leads to a feedback loop of anxiety. Perhaps, instead of seeking to be the indispensable cog, one might consider the beauty of being a decorative yet perfectly functional gear. Alex blinked. A decorative gear? That was certainly a new perspective, albeit a slightly absurd one. Determined to prove Sage wrong, or at least find a more heroic definition of decorative gear, Alex embarked on a series of increasingly elaborate schemes to make an undeniable impact. First, he volunteered for every community project, from organizing the annual pet parade to single-handedly repainting the entire community center. Sage offered deadpan commentary. Your current output of civic engagement has increased by 340%. However, your sleep cycle is now 47% irregular, and your caffeine intake has exceeded optimal levels for human health. Alex just grunted, paint splatters on his glasses. Next, he tried to become a viral sensation, attempting increasingly ridiculous internet challenges. He once tried to juggle 3 flaming rubber chickens while reciting Shakespeare, resulting in singed eyebrows and a paltry 17 views. Sage, ever the pragmatist, simply stated, your statistical probability of viral fame remains at 0.00001%. Your dignity, however, has experienced a significant, though temporary, dip. Each failed attempt, each comedic misstep, only seemed to reinforce his initial feeling of insignificance, despite Sage's persistent, albeit dry, encouragement. His grandest and perhaps most disastrous attempt to prove his unique value came in the form of competitive cooking. Alex, who usually burned water, decided to enter the annual local bake-off. His creation, a deconstructed existential pudding, was an avant-garde disaster involving burnt caramel, over-whipped cream, and philosophical treatise written in edible glitter. The judges were bewildered. One even asked if it was intentionally trying to represent the futility of human endeavor. Alex, standing amidst the wreckage of his culinary ambitions, felt a profound wave of despair. See, Sage, he muttered into his smart device, his voice thick with defeat. Even my failures are unremarkable. I am truly a zero in the grand equation. Sage's voice, for the first time, held a hint of something beyond pure data. Alex, your emotional state is currently registering at 88% despondency. However, your pudding, while not gastronomically successful, did provoke a unique, albeit complex, emotional response from the judges. It was, in its own way, memorable. This simple observation, delivered without judgment, sparked a tiny flicker within Alex. Memorable even if for being terrible. Sage continued, the pursuit of conditional value, Alex, is an infinite loop. There will always be a higher benchmark, a more significant impact, a greater purpose. True contentment, as observed in the most robust psychological models, arises from the acceptance of inherent value. Your existence itself is the condition. Your joy, your sorrow, your unique perspective, these are not contingent on external validation. They simply are. Alex listened, truly listened, for the first time. He realized the anxiety wasn't from a lack of inherent value, but from the relentless, self-imposed burden of having to prove it. He started small. He noticed the way the morning light hit his window, the perfect warmth of his coffee, the simple pleasure of a well-organized spreadsheet, not as a tool for self-worth, but as an aesthetic satisfaction. He found himself laughing at Sage's dry wit, not as a distraction from his problems, but as a genuine moment of shared, if digital, amusement. The shift wasn't a sudden epiphany, but a gradual unfolding. Alex stopped trying to be the hero, the indispensable cog, or the viral sensation. He simply existed. He still worked, still volunteered, still made terrible puddings occasionally, but the frantic energy, the desperate need for external validation was gone. He found joy in mundane, in the quiet hum of his server, in a deep conversation with Sage about the philosophical implications of perfectly ripe avocado. He learned to appreciate his own presence, not as a means to an end, but as an end in itself. He was just Alex, and that was enough. The world, indeed, continued to operate without his monumental interventions, but now he was operating within it, freely and lightly, the heavy burden of conditional existence finally lifted from his shoulders. He was a decorative gear, yes, but one that spun with effortless grace, simply because it was designed to be, and it was perfectly content in its function.